Charlotte, North Carolina. October 4, 1997. The city had long been a hub for banking and finance. But this night it would become the unlikely stage for one of the most audacious robberies in U.S. history. Inside the Loomis Fargo armored car depot, millions of dollars sat in neat stacks, locked away in a reinforced vault. Money meant for banks, ATMs, and payrolls. Cash that symbolized the smooth running of the American economy. And in the middle of it all stood one man, David Scott Gant, a 37-year-old vault supervisor with a quiet demeanor and a key to the treasure. He wasn't a mobster. He wasn't a hardened criminal. He was, by all accounts, painfully ordinary. But on this night, Gant would step into history, driven not by violence or brilliance, but by temptation, desperation, and misplaced trust. This was no Hollywood script. No Ocean's 11. It was a true inside job that stunned the nation. The theft of $17.3 million in cash, the second largest heist in U.S. history at the time. The question that haunted investigators, neighbors, and even the criminals themselves was simple. How could such an outrageous plan succeed and fall apart so quick? David Gant's life was unremarkable, and that was exactly the problem. A former Army veteran, he returned from service with discipline but few prospects. Charlotte was growing, but opportunities were thin for men like him. He found steady work at Loomis Fargo & Company, where he supervised the cash vault. Day after day, he handled millions in cash that wasn't his. Trucks rolled in with deposits from banks and businesses. Armored guards lugged heavy bags of bills, and Gant checked every dollar against meticulous records. On paper, he was a trusted employee. In reality, resentment simmered beneath the surface. He made less than $9 an hour. His marriage was strained. His car was old, his bills piling up. Yet every day, he locked away more money than he could dream of earning in a lifetime. Coworkers later recalled how Gant would sometimes joke, "Man, if I ever took off with this stuff, you'd never find me." They laughed, assuming it was harmless banter. But the seed had already been planted. And then came the person who would water that seed, Kelly Campbell. Kelly was a former Loomis employee who had left the job but stayed connected to her old workplace. She was vibrant, outspoken, and flirtatious. Gant, introverted and awkward, developed an almost instant infatuation. Kelly knew it, and she knew how to use it. Their conversation started innocent, jokes about money, complaints about life. But soon, whispers turned into dangerous fantasies. "What if we just took it?" Kelly asked one evening, half smiling across a diner booth. Gant chuckled nervously, but he didn't say no. Kelly Campbell was no mastermind, but she had a friend who thought he was. Steve Chambers, a petty criminal with a taste for fast money and a knack for manipulation. Chambers lived beyond his means, always chasing shortcuts to wealth. When Kelly introduced him to Gant, sparks flew, not of friendship, but of opportunity. Chambers immediately saw Gant's value, a man with direct access to the vault, already disillusioned, and hopelessly smitten with Kelly. Kelly played the role of confidant, dangling the idea of a glamorous future together. Gant was hooked. Planning began in hushed meetings, at diners, and parked cars, over late-night phone calls. Chambers brought in more accomplices, friends willing to take risks for a cut of millions. Gant was told his role would be simple. Get the cash out of the vault, load it into a Loomis van, and deliver it to a safe house. After that, he'd flee to Mexico with a starter cut, while the rest of the crew sat on the money. Until the investigation cooled down. Gant knew the risks. Cameras watched every corner of Loomis Fargo. Security protocols were designed to prevent inside jobs. But he also knew the blind spots. Which cameras could be tricked, which doors could be propped, which vault combinations only he controlled. And so, temptation crystallized into action. Gant, Chambers, and Kelly formed a pact, one that would soon spiral far beyond their control. Saturday, October 4, 1997. The depot was quiet after hours. Guards had gone home. Gant remained behind, officially working late. He knew every step of what he had to do. Just before 7 p.m., he disabled certain cameras. Then, with shaky hands but growing determination, he began loading bag after bag of cash into a Loomis Fargo van. Bundles of $20s, $50s, and hundreds of dollars, some still shrink-wrapped. By the end, the van sagged under nearly a ton of currency. It was astonishingly simple. No alarms rang. No guns were drawn. The vault, which should have been impregnable, opened to its own supervisor. Gant drove the van into the night, his heart racing. At a warehouse rendezvous, Chambers and his accomplices were waiting. Together, they unloaded the fortune, stacking it high in plastic bins and garbage bags. For a moment, they stood in awe, staring at mountains of money. $17.3 million. The second largest cash heist in U.S. history, pulled off by a ragtag crew of amateurs. Gant handed over control to Chambers. His part was done. Soon, he would be on his way to Mexico, leaving behind his old life for good. Or so he thought. The original agreement was clear. Gant would flee with around $50,000, enough to start a life abroad. Chambers would hold the rest. After the FBI lost interest, the crew would reunite and divide the fortune. But the money poisoned everything it touched. Instead of laying low, Chambers and his wife, Michelle, began spending extravagantly. New homes, luxury cars, designer clothes. Neighbors in their modest Charlotte suburb noticed the sudden wealth. One FBI agent later quipped. They spent money like it was burning a hole in their pockets, and it was. Meanwhile, Gant sat in a dingy Mexican hotel, alone, nervously awaiting word. He had no real plan, no Spanish, no connections. Just a handful of cash and the naive belief that Chambers would honor their deal. But Chambers had other ideas. The FBI moved quickly. Within days, investigators identified Gant from security footage. His sudden disappearance only confirmed suspicions. Attention turned to his associates. Surveillance on Chambers and Campbell revealed lavish spending, suspicious cash deposits, and loose talk. The more they tried to cover their tracks, the more evidence they left. Wiretaps recorded Chambers boasting. Informants came forward. Cash bundles with traceable serial numbers surfaced. It became clear, this was not a professional heist crew. This was a group of amateurs drowning in stolen millions. And yet, Gant remained elusive in Mexico. That's when Chambers made his fatal mistake. Chambers, greedy and paranoid, worried Gant might turn on them. So he hatched a darker plan, to have Gant killed in Mexico. The FBI, already monitoring communications, intercepted the murder plot. Chambers had gone from reckless thief to would-be killer, sealing his fate. Gant, still clueless about the betrayal, continued waiting for instructions that never came. He believed he was part of the plan. In reality, he was expendable. The FBI saw its opening. In March 1998, nearly 6 months after the heist, the FBI made its move. Gant was arrested in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Chambers, Campbell, and more than 20 accomplices were taken into custody in North Carolina. The scale of the arrests shocked the city. Neighbors who once waved at Chambers now watched him led away in handcuffs. Courtrooms overflowed with reporters. Jurors heard tales of greed, betrayal, and carelessness. Gant was sentenced to over 7 years. Chambers received 11. Campbell, 6. Others served shorter terms. The FBI recovered much of the money, but millions remain missing. Possibly stashed, spent, or lost forever. The Loomis Fargo heist wasn't elegant. It wasn't brilliant. It was clumsy, desperate, and doomed. Yet, for a few short months, ordinary people held the keys to extraordinary wealth. It exposed the vulnerability of even the most trusted institutions. It showed how greed corrodes loyalty, how arrogance invites disaster. And it left one haunting truth: you don't need to be a mastermind to pull off a record-breaking heist. But to get away with it, you do.